Welcome along to the Rugby Obsession Deep Dive.
Great to be here.
Today, we're getting into something pretty interesting. A recent piece from the South African, headlined, Kolisi admits to fighting to make Springbok team.
Ah, yes, Siya Kolisi. Always insightful comments from him.
Exactly. And this gives us a fascinating look into the mindset of, a top captain right after a big win for his club, the Sharks.
That win itself is worth talking about first, maybe.
Yeah.
The context is important here.
Good point. So the article mentions the Sharks pulled off this really impressive comeback against Ulster in Belfast, no less.
Yeah, that's huge. They were down, what, 19-5 at halftime?
That's right. Looked pretty bleak, but they rallied, won it 22-19.
And that made them the first South African side ever in the URC to beat Ulster over there. That's quite a milestone.
Definitely. And before we get deeper into Kolisi's comments, if you love getting this kind of rugby insight, make sure you hit subscribe on Rugby Obsession. You won't want to miss our future deep dives.
So that victory wasn't just about history, was it? It had real implications for the URC standings.
Absolutely. It really helped sort of cement their place in the top four.
Which, as we know, is critical.
Yeah.
Why is that top four finish such a big target for these teams?
Well, it practically guarantees them a home playoff game, doesn't it?
Exactly. Less travel, familiar pitch, home crowd roaring you on.
Mm-hmm.
It's a massive advantage when you get to the knockout stages.
Right. So it's in that context, fresh off this big historic win, that Kolisi gives this post-match interview.
And he says something pretty candid.
Yeah, he comes right out and says that lots of players, himself included, are, quote, fighting to make the national team.
You don't always hear that level of directness from a World Cup winning captain, do you?
Yeah.
But feeling the pressure for selection.
No, you really don't. It kind of peels back the curtain a bit, shows the immense competition, even for someone like him.
It really does. It underlines that nobody's position is guaranteed. You have to keep performing week in, week out. It says a lot about the depth in South African rugby right now.
And he didn't just talk about himself. He specifically linked the United Rugby Championship to the national setup.
How so?
He called the URC big for our country and big for us as a group. He sees it as more than just franchise rugby.
Okay, so a pathway, a proving ground almost.
Precisely. He mentioned the tough competition too. Leinster, the Bulls, Glasgow. Acknowledging the standard is really high.
So playing well in these tough URC games, it's not just about getting, say, that home playoff you mentioned they're fighting for.
Right, which is a major goal.
But it's also about showing the national selectors you can perform under pressure against top opposition. It feeds directly into Springbok selection.
It seems completely connected in his mind. Club success and national ambitions, they go hand in hand.
Which makes sense. You want players who are battle-hardened from intense competition.
Now, something else the article did, it sort of threw a question out there directly to the readers, and by extension to you listening.
Oh, yeah. What was that?
It asked, in all caps, do you think Kolisi will play at the 2027 World Cup?
Ah, the big question. Looking ahead.
Yeah. And they encouraged people to comment or send messages with their thoughts. It taps into that fan speculation, doesn't it? Where do you see these iconic players fitting in down the line?
It does. And it makes you think about, well, everything involved. Form, fitness, age, the next generation coming through. It's never simple.
And Kolisi saying he's fighting now, it kind of acknowledges that future uncertainty, doesn't it? He knows he has to keep earning it.
Absolutely. Past glories are fantastic, but sport is relentless. It's always about what you're doing now and what you can do next.
Okay, so let's maybe pull together the main threads here. What are the key takeaways from Kolisi's comments and this whole situation?
Well, first, I think, is that stark reminder of the intense competition. Even a legend like Kolisi feels that pressure to perform for his Bok spot.
Yeah, that really stands out. And second,
The importance of the URC. He's explicitly saying this league is vital, not just for the franchises winning trophies, but as a critical platform for players aiming for international honors.
okay, good point. It elevates the significance of those weekly URC clashes.
And it shows his mindset, right? Focused on the immediate goal, getting that home playoff for the Sharks, but also with that bigger picture, the national team clearly in view.
It's a great insight into the drive of elite athletes, that constant push. And just a reminder, if you appreciate these kinds of discussions, breaking down the stories behind the headlines, make sure you're subscribed to Rugby Obsession.
It also, I think, subtly highlights the sheer depth South Africa has. If your World Cup winning captain feels he needs to fight for his place, that tells you a lot about the talent pool.
That's a very sharp point. It's not a weakness, it's a sign of strength in the system.
Definitely. It pushes everyone to be better.
So Siya Kolisi's honesty here, it really gives you a compelling look at the pressures, the motivations, everything that goes into playing rugby at the very highest level. His dedication, even after all his success, is pretty remarkable.
It really is. That desire to keep competing for the Springbok jersey seems undimmed.
So we encourage you, listening right now, think about what Kolisi said. Think about that Sharks win. What are your thoughts on his chances for 2027? Does he make it? We genuinely love to hear what you think.
Yeah, it's a great debate to have. So many factors.
Absolutely. Well, that about wraps up this Deep Dive. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Rugby Obsession Deep Dive.
Thanks for listening.
We look forward to listening to our next episode.